My wife and her whole family locked me out of our house during a snowstorm, and they stood there behind the window, actually laughing at me. One of them even shouted something like, "Freeze out there, you worthless idiot." I didn't say a word, just turned around and walked off, burning with anger. A few days later, I opened my inbox to find over 30 frantic messages, all from them, begging me to come back. You ever have that moment when everything in your life suddenly flips, and you realize your marriage wasn't what you thought it was? For me, it wasn't catching her with flirty texts or some cliché like lipstick on my shirt. No, it was standing outside in the freezing cold, staring through our frosted living room window while my wife gave her brother a high five. We'd been married for 4 years. The first couple of years were all right, good even. Not perfect, but then again, whose marriage is? Things started going downhill when her parents' lease ran out and they needed somewhere to stay just for a few weeks. That was a year and a half ago. And ever since, our life turned into a slow-motion train wreck. It started with little things. Her mom decided to rearrange the entire kitchen without even asking. Her dad wouldn't stop butting into our finances, always throwing in his 2 cents. Then about 2 months ago, her younger brother Logan moved in after losing his place. Suddenly, our 3-bedroom house felt like a packed motel. 5 adults under one roof, and somehow, I was the one who felt like a guest in my own home. I tried bringing it up to Caroline. More than once. Every single time, it ended in tears, her saying I hated her family, and the usual, "but they're my family" speech. Eventually, I just gave up talking about it. I started hiding out in the garage or picking up extra shifts at work just to get a little breathing room. Not the best way to handle it, I'll admit, but looking back, I didn't see another option. Then came last Wednesday. That was the night everything finally blew up. A massive blizzard had rolled in, the kind where even the weathermen say, "Don't go out unless you want to die." I'd taken an extra shift, partly because we could use the money, but mostly to avoid their so-called family game night, which always felt more like an inside joke I wasn't invited to. My shift ended at 10 p.m., and the roads were a nightmare. What should have been a 15-minute drive took nearly an hour. I finally got home, completely worn out, and noticed the whole house was lit up, even though it was nearly midnight. Didn't think much of it. I fought my way through the snow to the front door. Tried my key. It didn't work. Tried again. Still nothing. I checked the address, checked the key, everything was right. So I knocked. Then knocked louder. After a moment, I noticed some movement behind the glass. The porch light flicked on, and there was Caroline, peering out at me. At first, I felt relieved until I saw the look on her face. She wasn't worried. She was amused. I waved at her to open the door. She just shook her head. I didn't get it, so I called her phone. She answered, but didn't say anything. I said, "Caroline, the door's locked and my key doesn't work. Can you open up? It's freezing out here." She replied with this weird calm tone, "Yeah, about that. We changed the locks today." "You what? Why would you do that without telling me?" I asked. She casually said it was Logan's idea. He thought it'd be funny. I stood there, staring at her, waiting for the joke to be over. But nothing. "Caroline, it's 12 below zero, and there's snow up to my knees. Let me in," I told her. Just then, her brother Logan showed up beside her, holding a beer and grinning like he was watching some late-night comedy. "Sorry, man," he said loud enough for me to hear. "No losers allowed tonight. Just family." I couldn't believe it. I looked at Caroline, hoping she'd tell him to knock it off, to open the door, to do something. But instead, she laughed. She actually laughed. And then her parents came into view behind them, both smirking. Her dad even lifted his wine glass like he was making some kind of sarcastic toast. "Caroline," I said, my voice shaking part cold, part fury, "this isn't funny. Open the door." She just shrugged and said, like it was no big deal, "Maybe you should go stay with one of your friends. We're having a family meeting about the house situation." "I am family," I told them. "I'm your husband. And this is my house too." That's when Logan leaned in close to the window, his breath fogging up the glass, and said something I'll never forget. "Freeze to death, you worthless idiot." Caroline didn't defend me. She didn't even look the slightest bit ashamed. Instead, she nodded along, laughed, and gave him a high five. I stood there for another half-minute or so, my phone clinging to 7% battery, gas tank nearly empty, and the worst blizzard in decades howling all around me. And right then, something deep inside me just shifted. Broke, maybe. Or maybe it finally snapped into place. Hard to say. I didn't shout. I didn't bang on the door. I didn't plead. I just turned around, walked back through the snow to my car, and drove off. Before I could even make a call, my phone died. And by then, the roads were so bad parts of them couldn't even be driven. I ended up stumbling across this 24-hour diner that still had lights on, and I sat there sipping hot coffee until the sun came up, borrowing their phone to call my buddy Matt. He didn't ask any questions, just told me I could crash at his place for as long as I needed. So I laid low at his apartment for 3 full days. No social media, no calls, just completely disappeared from my usual life. I needed time to breathe, to think, and to really take in what had just happened. By Saturday night, I finally pulled out my old backup phone and charged it up. That's when I saw the flood, 37 messages waiting for me. And no, that's not an exaggeration. 37 different messages, texts, voicemails, DMs across every platform you can think of. The first ones were angry. Stuff like, very mature, Nate, and stop being so dramatic. Just come home. One of them even said, Mom and Dad think you're being ridiculous. Then the tone changed. Concern started creeping in. Where are you staying? And can you just let us know you're okay? And then full-on panic. Nate, seriously, this isn't funny anymore, one read. We've contacted all your friends. Please, just say something. The last batch? Straight up begging. Please come home. I'm sorry. It was just a joke. Logan feels awful. Everyone's so worried. The one that really stuck with me came from Caroline's mom. She said, we never meant for you to actually leave. Please come back so we can talk this out as a family. As a family. That same family who locked me out during a deadly snowstorm and laughed in my face. Now, I've never been the type to make a scene. I'm the guy who bends. The one who keeps things calm. The man who let his in-laws basically take over his home for over a year and didn't raise his voice about it. But that night, something changed. Standing in the cold, watching my own wife laugh at me like I was the punchline to some joke, that flipped a switch in me. I sent her one simple message. We need to talk. Meet me at Starbucks tomorrow at noon. Come alone. I'd spent the last 3 days turning over every word in my head, thinking about what I'd say, what I wanted to happen next, and what I'd finally accepted, that I'd been blind to what my marriage truly was. And one thing hit me clear as day. Revenge isn't about being cold. It's about being measured. So here's what happened. That night, when I walked away from the house, my brain was spinning, but also completely blank. Just one thought kept repeating, don't let them see you break. I sat in my car for a good 20 minutes, engine running, heater blasting, gripping the steering wheel, so tight my hands turned pale. I didn't cry. I didn't punch anything. I just sat there. The roads were still a mess. Cars were abandoned in ditches left and right. Eventually, I found this all-night diner called Lou's that still had electricity. The place was nearly empty, just a couple truckers and a waitress who looked like she wanted to quit right there on the spot. I ordered a coffee and found a quiet corner booth to settle into. I just sat there in that booth, trying to wrap my head around everything. My phone finally gave up around 1 a.m., which was probably a blessing. I didn't really want to see whatever Caroline or her family might have been sending at that point anyway. I stayed put until the sun came up, nursing that same cup of coffee for hours. The waitress's name was Linda, total lifesaver. She kept topping off my mug and never once charged me extra. When morning rolled around, I used the diner's phone to call Matt. We hadn't really hung out much since Caroline's family moved in. They never liked him because he once called them out for hogging the conversation at my birthday dinner last year. Still, when I called, he didn't ask a single thing. Just said, come over. Doors open. I'll make breakfast. That's when I really started taking action. While I was staying with Matt, I did 3 big things. First, I got a new phone and a brand new number. I kept the old one around just to keep an eye on any incoming messages, but I didn't reply to any of them. I left it powered off most of the time anyway, mainly to save battery since I hadn't grabbed a charger when I left. Second, I logged into our joint bank account, and sure enough, it was almost wiped clean. Not entirely, but close. There was only $368 left, when just a couple months ago it had been over $7,000. I looked through the transaction history and saw that Caroline had been slowly transferring money into an unfamiliar account for months. All told, about $6,700 had vanished. The third thing I did was go to our bank's branch and open up our safety deposit box. I made sure to grab all our important documents, my birth certificate, car title, stuff like that. Thankfully, I'd stashed those away before her family ever moved in. so none of them had access. Through all of this, Matt was absolutely solid. He let me crash on his couch, let me vent for hours, and even helped me figure out what steps to take next. He loaned me some clothes too, since I didn't have anything with me except what I'd been wearing the night I got locked out. On the second day, I went into work and had a quiet talk with HR. Not to get anyone in trouble, but just to make sure Caroline or her family couldn't cause me issues there. My manager, Greg, was surprisingly supportive. Turns out, his own sister had been through something similar with her ex, so he got it. He even offered to let security know to be on alert in case anyone showed up looking for me. I also met with a financial advisor to go over ways to protect my remaining money and separate everything financially. The consultation wasn't cheap, but honestly, the peace of mind was worth every cent. On the third day, I finally turned on my old phone to see what kind of chaos was brewing. And yeah, the messages were exactly what I expected. The first few came in on Thursday morning. 9:32 a.m. Caroline. Very mature. Nate. When are you coming home? 11:03 a.m. Caroline again. Mom and Dad think you're being ridiculous. Then she added, Logan says he was just joking. Later that day, around mid-afternoon. 2:20 p.m. Caroline's mom. Nate, this is unacceptable. Caroline's very upset. But by dinner time that Friday, the tone started to shift. 6:15 p.m. Caroline. Where are you staying? At least let me know you're okay. 7 p.m. Caroline again. I called Matt, but he says he hasn't heard from you. Please text back. 7:50 p.m. Another message from her. Your work said you called in. So I know you're alive, at least. Then came Saturday morning, and with it, full-blown panic mode. 8:10 a.m. Caroline. Nate, please respond. This isn't funny anymore. 8:15 a.m. I'm worried something happened to you. By 9:30 a.m., even her dad chimed in. Son, we need to talk about what happened. Going silent isn't helping anyone. Then Logan messaged me at 10 a.m. Hey man, I was just messing around. Didn't mean anything by it. Come home and let's talk. But Saturday afternoon is when things really took a turn. 0:45 p.m. Caroline. We filed a missing person report, but the cops said since you called work, there's nothing they can do. Then at 1:50 p.m., your sister called me asking where you were. Did you tell her what happened? Here's the fun part. I didn't tell my sister a thing. The thing about my sister Nancy, she's always seen through Caroline's nonsense. She never bought into the perfect image Caroline tried to present. By Sunday, the messages were piling up fast, one after another, every hour, each more desperate than the last. 9:30 a.m. Caroline. Please come home. I'm sorry. We were just joking around. 1:45 a.m. Caroline's mom. Nate, we never thought you'd actually leave. Please come back so we can sit down and talk as a family. 10:47 a.m. Caroline again. I love you. Please come back. I'll fix this. 11:30 a.m. Logan. Dude, everyone's losing it. Just let us know you're okay. Sorry about what I said. The final message I saw before I decided to reply came from Caroline at 1:45 p.m. Please. I'll do anything. Just come home. That's when I sent her the message about meeting at Starbucks. Now, I told her to come alone, and I had a reason for that. So what does she do? She shows up with the whole crew, her parents, her brother, the entire circus. When I walked in and saw them all sitting there, part of me wanted to turn around and walk right back out the door. But I didn't. I stayed cool. I sat down, looked her dead in the eye, and said calmly, we agreed you'd come alone. She immediately started crying, saying she was scared and needed support. Her mom chimed in right away, acting concerned and claiming they just wanted to help. I kept my composure and asked one simple question. Where did the $6,700 from our joint account go? The looks on their faces? Absolutely priceless. Caroline mumbled something about unexpected family emergencies. Her dad tried to steer the conversation in a different direction. Then Logan, somehow still missing the point, had the nerve to say I was being selfish for bringing up money at a time like this. I pulled out printed bank statements showing clear transfers over several months and laid them on the table. Then I asked again, this time directly, Caroline, where's the money? That's when she finally broke down and admitted it. Her parents had been struggling financially, and she'd been helping them behind my back. Turns out they lost a ton of money in some shady investment, and they didn't tell me because they thought I'd judge them. Her dad immediately got defensive, claiming I should be grateful they'd even moved in with us, because their supposed knowledge and connections were an asset to our future. Connections? Expertise? The man still calls me to ask how to open Netflix. Even then, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cause a scene. I just calmly slid a piece of paper across the table with 3 clear conditions. Return the full amount of money within 72 hours. Everyone moves out of the house within 1 week. If Caroline wanted any chance of fixing our marriage, she'd agree to start couples counseling. Her mom actually laughed and said, "We're not going anywhere. That house is just as much ours as it is yours now." That's when I pulled out the big one. I took out my phone and played the video I'd recorded that night. Yes, I'd had just enough presence of mind to hit record in those final moments before my battery died. The audio was crystal clear. You could hear Logan say, "Freeze to death, worthless idiot," and Caroline laughing right along with him. I looked them all in the eye and told them, calmly, that if the money wasn't returned and they didn't move out, I'd send that video to every friend, every relative, and to Caroline's workplace. I also casually mentioned I'd already spoken with a lawyer, technically a bluff, but they didn't need to know that, about the financial side of things, and about how this could be seen as recklessly endangering someone during an emergency. The whole Starbucks went quiet. Caroline was in tears. Her mom looked furious. Her dad seemed like he'd seen a ghost. And Logan? He just stared down at his cup like it had answers. I stood up, told Caroline to let me know her decision by the end of the day, and walked out without looking back. That was yesterday. This morning, I checked our bank account. $6,700 had been deposited. A text followed from Caroline saying her family would be out by Friday and asking if we could meet and talk, just the two of us. I haven't replied to her yet, still figuring out my next steps. But I did get in touch with Caroline's Aunt Nancy, the one they all cut off years ago. Apparently, she was ousted for pushing back, and now she's been giving me the real scoop on this family's long track record of pulling shady stunts like this. There's a whole lot more to unravel here, including what I'm going to do about the marriage, but this has gone on long enough for now. One thing's certain, though, I'm done being the doormat they used and abused for years. That old version of me, he froze out there in the snow. The man who walked away that night, he's someone entirely new. First thing I noticed when I walked into the house last Friday, they'd rearranged everything in the living room. Who does that right before moving out? The couch was shoved to a different wall, the TV stand was angled weirdly, and my recliner, the one Caroline always hated, was stuffed in the corner like it had done something wrong. It was such a childish move, but for some reason, it made me laugh. First real laugh I'd had in weeks. They actually left on Thursday, an entire day early, which instantly made me suspicious. Caroline's family has never been the type to do anything ahead of schedule. They're the kind who wait until the last second and still ask for an extension. I had Matt come with me to check things out, just in case they'd trashed the place or left some kind of disaster behind. The house wasn't wrecked, but it was definitely off. Besides the messed up furniture setup, I noticed all kinds of petty little things. The thermostat was cranked down to 60. Caroline knows I like it set at 65. They'd taken down every photo, except the ones from our wedding. Those were the only ones missing. My PlayStation was still there, but all my saved games were wiped. Just straight up childish. The fridge? Completely empty. Not even a bottle of ketchup. Someone had gone through and swapped every light bulb with those awful, blinding white ones I can't stand. Nothing illegal, just a string of small jabs on their way out the door. The weirdest part? A letter from Caroline left on the kitchen counter. But it wasn't a farewell or an apology. It was a bill. She'd listed out her supposed share of household expenses from the last years, itemized, and added a note saying that with the $6,700 returned, we were now even. I actually took a picture of it and posted it on my Instagram story. The reactions? Pure chaos. I sent her a text asking to meet the next day at the local park. Public spot, neutral ground, and no way she'd drag her whole family there again. She agreed right away. When I got there, she already looked different. Not just upset, but like a balloon that had lost all its air. She started crying before I even sat down. And honestly, I felt nothing. Not anger, not guilt, just calm. It's funny how that works. There was a time when seeing her cry would have had me apologizing before I even knew what I'd done. But now, I just sat there and waited for her to get it together. The conversation that followed was, surprisingly, pretty even-keeled. She admitted that her family had been calling the shots in her life for a long time. But she also owned up to the fact that she let it happen. As for the money, she said her parents had put everything into some sketchy crypto deal that crashed. They'd been pressuring her for months, throwing guilt trips about how they'd moved in to help us. So we owed it to help them in return. And the night they locked me out, that was all Logan's bright idea. He called it a loyalty test, said I was too independent and needed to be put in my place. Changing the locks was supposed to be temporary, just a way to teach me a lesson about respecting family order. Yep, he actually said family hierarchy. What is this, Game of Thrones? Caroline swore up and down that she didn't think they'd leave me outside all night, especially during a blizzard. She said she argued with them after I left, but just couldn't stand up to them when it counted. That's when I asked the one question that had been eating away at me since that night. Was any of our marriage even real? Or was I just a walking paycheck and landlord for her freeloading family? Her answer? Complicated. She said she did love me, but then admitted she picked me because I was stable and easy to influence. Her actual words? I knew you'd never say no to me if I cried enough. That hit harder than being locked out in the snow. I told her I wanted a divorce. She didn't argue, just asked if there was anything she could do to change my mind. I told her no. Now here's where it gets interesting. Remember Aunt Nancy? Caroline's black sheep aunt who got kicked out of the family years ago? Turns out she got the boot for doing the same thing I did, refusing to let Caroline's parents control her money or her life. I'd only met her once at our wedding. And, surprise, Caroline's parents made sure we barely spoke. But after all this, I tracked Nancy down on Facebook and reached out. She gave me the full picture. The years of emotional blackmail, financial manipulation. This wasn't a one-off. This was how they operate. And then Nancy pitched an idea. Crash the next big family dinner. Make everything public. Pull back the curtain. She'd already started reconnecting with some extended relatives. Turns out quite a few of them had similar stories, but were too afraid to speak up. So last Sunday we did it. We showed up, uninvited, at Caroline's grandparents' house. The look on their faces? Worth it. Caroline's mom literally choked on her wine. Her dad turned ghost white. Logan tried to sneak out, but his girlfriend, who honestly I always liked, stopped him cold. I didn't yell, didn't raise my voice, just calmly told the story. The lockout, the stolen money, the gaslighting. Then I played the video of them laughing while I begged to be let in. And Nancy? She shared her side too, which, no surprise, was basically my story years earlier. The room flipped. Caroline's grandparents were horrified. Cousins were texting like crazy, probably live updating the family group chat. Her uncle Frank stood up and said he'd gone through the same thing but thought it was just him. Then one by one, people started opening up. Years of silence cracked open like a dam. And then, Logan broke. He admitted the lockout was never just a joke. It was a plan. A calculated move to push me out of Caroline's life for good. His girlfriend dumped him right there on the spot. Asked if she could catch a ride home with me and Nancy. We said absolutely. That's when Caroline's dad tried to take control again, stood up and yelled that I was manipulating them. No one bought it. Then Caroline's mom turned on her own daughter, blaming her for mishandling everything. That backfired hard. Caroline finally stood up for herself. Said she was done being their puppet. Said their manipulation cost her her marriage. Then she threw her phone at her dad and told them all she was blocking them until they got professional help. I didn't stick around for the fireworks. Just said my piece. Helped Nancy reconnect with family who actually cared and walked out with my head high. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, divorce papers filed. Caroline didn't contest anything. I've completely redone the house. New paint, new setup, new energy. I even got a dog from the shelter. A chill little pit mix named Rocky. He's already claimed my old recliner. As for Caroline's parents, word is they skipped town, hiding out with some relatives after the truth came out. And Logan? He got fired. Unrelated reason, but karma doesn't miss. Nancy and I have actually become really good friends. She's been this steady, no-nonsense support I didn't realize I needed. Funny how that works. In the last few weeks, I've reconnected with old friends, people Caroline's family subtly pushed away. The kind of friends who always made me feel like myself, not like a background character in someone else's play. And then something weird happened. Caroline stopped by yesterday to pick up the last of her things. She looked different. Not just sad or tired, more like herself, whatever that even means now. She told me she started therapy, that she's staying with her cousin for a while. She apologized again, not to win me back, not as a guilt move, just because she actually meant it. For a second, I wondered what could have been. If she'd found that strength years ago. If she'd pushed back against her parents sooner. If we'd had a real shot. But that moment passed. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ash. It's been over a month, exactly, since I stood in a blizzard, locked out of my own home, watching my wife laugh at me through a window. Over a month since everything shattered. Now, my life's completely different. Not perfect. My kitchen sink still leaks, and I'm not great at cooking for one. But it's mine again. My choices. My space. My peace. I don't know what comes next. But for the first time in a long time, I'm actually excited to find out.